After my 8-year-old daughter got carsick, my parents kicked her out of the car and abandoned her on an empty road because she was ruining the fun for the other grandchildren. I didn't shout. I took action. 2 hours later, their lives started falling apart. The phone rang in the middle of my workday. Mom's name flashed on the screen. I almost didn't answer. She usually calls to ask about passwords she's forgotten or to tell me about another fundraiser she wants me to contribute to, but I picked up. Her voice was brisk, almost cheerful. "Denise, you'll need to come and collect Ruby." She got sick in the car. We've left her by a safe spot on the road. It's close, just 15 minutes from you, I think. I froze. "I'm sorry, what?" "She was ill," Mom said, like she was reporting the weather. "We couldn't risk the other kids catching it. And we've got a flight. We couldn't wait. You can be there quickly." For a second, I thought I'd misheard. "You left my daughter on the road?" "She's fine," Dad chimed in from the background, his voice muffled but firm. "Don't overreact." "We dropped her where there are people around. Overreact." "Right. Because when your 8-year-old vomits in the car, the reasonable response is to dump her on the roadside like unwanted luggage. Spoiler, there weren't any people. Not that it would make it better. They texted me a pin drop and hung up, just like that. I grabbed my keys and ran. Traffic crawled. My hands clenched the wheel so tight my knuckles whitened. My parents' words kept circling in my head. "She's fine. Don't overreact." They had always been good at that, making cruelty sound practical. When I pulled up to the spot, my heart lodged in my throat. There she was, my little girl, standing alone, clutching her backpack to her chest like a shield, eyes red from crying. The road was empty, the air heavy, and the space around her felt like a punishment. She looked so small against the bleak stretch of asphalt. The moment she saw me, her face crumpled. She ran to the car, stumbling, and collapsed into my arms. "Mom!" Her whole body shook. I held her as tightly as I could. "I'm here." "You're safe now." The tears came in waves. Her words tangled with hiccups. "They said I couldn't come. They said I was too sick. But I wasn't. She swallowed hard. "I just got dizzy in the car." I leaned back to look at her. Her cheeks were streaked, her hands trembling. "You got carsick?" She nodded, her lip quivering. "That's all." So there it was. Not the flu. Not a stomach bug. Not anything contagious or serious. Carsick. The thing that happens to kids sometimes. The thing you comfort them through, hand them water, roll the window down, promise them ice cream later. And for that, my parents had decided to abandon her. I buckled her in beside me, started the car, and forced my voice steady. "Listen to me, Ruby. You did nothing wrong. Nothing. This is not your fault." She sniffled, staring at her hands. "They said I ruined everything." A dry laugh escaped me, bitter and sharp. "Sweetheart, the only thing ruined here is their credibility as grandparents." She managed a shaky smile at that, but the tears didn't stop. I drove us home, every mile stretching the anger tighter inside me. My parents thought they'd been clever. They thought they'd dressed up cruelty as logic. She was sick. We had to think of the others. We had a flight to catch. But all I could see was my daughter's face, pale and streaked with tears, standing alone on that empty road. At home, I tucked Ruby onto the couch with a blanket and a cup of water. She clung to me like she was afraid I'd disappear too. I stroked her hair, my voice calm for her sake. "You're safe. I've got you, and I promise you'll never go through that again." Inside, my thoughts burned. They thought I'd swallow it, that I'd let it slide because they wrapped it up in excuses, that I'd keep paying, keep contributing, keep enabling them. They had no idea who they were dealing with, because the moment I pulled Ruby into my arms on that roadside, something shifted. This wasn't just another insult, another manipulation, another, "Oops, we didn't mean it that way." This was the line, and they had crossed it. I sat beside my daughter as her breathing finally evened out, her small hand gripping mine. She whispered, "Are you mad at me?" My throat tightened. "No, sweetheart. I'm mad at them, and they're about to regret it." She drifted into sleep, her chest rising and falling softly while I stared at the ceiling, every nerve in my body alive with resolve. They thought abandoning Ruby was practical. I knew it was unforgivable. And soon, their lives would start to unravel. If you want to understand why I snapped, you need the whole story. This didn't come out of nowhere. My parents didn't suddenly turn into people who thought dumping an 8-year-old by the side of the road was reasonable. No. That kind of thinking has roots, and I've been tripping over those roots my entire life. I grew up the afterthought. My brother, 2 years older, was the favorite. Not in a way you could point to in court, not in a way that would make for a neat headline. It was quieter than that, subtler, the kind of favoritism you can almost convince yourself you imagined. Almost. When I was 11, they booked a family holiday to Florida. Disney, beaches, the works. The same week I had my regional school competition. I'd told them about it months in advance, circled the date on the calendar. They went anyway. "Oh no," Mom said later, tilting her head in mock concern. "You must have written it down wrong." I hadn't. They came home with bags of souvenirs, endless stories, and this sing-song refrain. "What a shame you weren't there." Like they'd tripped and accidentally bought tickets, boarded a plane, and stayed gone for 2 weeks. That refrain followed me for years. Every time something was planned when I couldn't go, "What a shame you weren't there," delivered with a smile, dripping with false innocence. I learned early. My presence was optional. My absence was convenient. Fast forward. I decided if I couldn't be wanted, I'd at least be indispensable. I threw myself into school, then into work, clawing for independence. I landed in fintech. Glamorous only if you find spreadsheets glamorous, but stable. And yes, it pays well. My husband does okay too. Together, we're comfortable. And in my family, comfortable is code for you get the biggest bill. We have this so-called system. Everyone contributes what they can. Nice on paper. In practice, it means if you earn less, you chip in less, and if you earn more, you shoulder more, which would be fine, if more didn't eventually mean everything. Family vacations? I'd end up paying $1,500 to $2,000, while others tossed in $200, maybe $500 if they were feeling generous. The emergency fund? A noble idea, supposedly for true crises. I put in $600 a month. My brother, the golden child, about $150. Guess whose money covered Mom and Dad's emergency mortgage shortfall last spring? Or their car insurance? Or Dad's new glasses? Spoiler, not him. And sometimes I wouldn't even know until the money was gone. One text in the group chat. We had to use the fund. Hope that's okay. As if I had a choice. It wasn't just money. I co-signed their mortgage, co-signed their car lease, supposedly just helping them get a better rate. But we all knew what it meant. If they slipped, the bank would come for me. They'd wrapped chains around my credit score and called it family duty. And yet, I went along with it. Why? Because I wanted Ruby to have what I never had. Cousins, grandparents, family vacations, memories that didn't start with, "What a shame you weren't there." So I bought peace. I bought belonging for my daughter, even if I never got it myself. Which brings me to the trip. This wasn't just any trip. It was Orlando. Roller coasters, parades, the kind of commercials that make kids bounce on the couch chanting, When can we go? When can we go? Ruby had been begging for over a year. Every time she saw her cousins, she asked, "Are we going yet?" When the invitation came, timed, of course, for one of my busiest weeks at work, I almost said no. The pattern was too familiar. But Ruby's face when she heard the destination, she lit up like Christmas morning. So I caved. I thought, they're her grandparents. They'll take care of her. What could go wrong? My husband couldn't step in. Not just because of work, but because the idea of spending a week with my family without me makes him break out in hives. So Ruby went without us, clutching her new backpack, grinning from ear to ear. And me? I footed the bill. $850 for Ruby's airfare, hotel share, and park ticket. Another $1,200 toward group costs, because, of course, I make more. $2,050 in total. More than double what anyone else gave. I told myself it was worth it. This was Ruby's chance to have the trip she'd been dreaming about. But deep down, I knew I was repeating history. I'd paid for the privilege of being excluded. Looking back, I can't believe how naive I was. I thought throwing money at them would buy safety, inclusion, love. Instead, it bought my daughter a place on the side of an empty road, crying into her backpack while her grandparents called it practical. They didn't know it yet, but the cracks in their perfect little world had already begun. Ruby asked me again the next night. She was curled up on the couch with her sketchbook, doodling half-heartedly, her lines shaky. She didn't look up when she whispered it. "Mom, did I really ruin it for everyone?" It was the second time. She'd already asked once, and I'd told her no, it wasn't her fault. But here it was again. The same question, raw and jagged. That's how deep they'd cut her. I put the sketchbook aside and crouched in front of her. "Sweetheart," I said, steady, "you didn't ruin anything." They did, and they're going to regret it. Her eyes filled, but she blinked hard and nodded. And for the first time since that roadside, I felt something hard and certain lock into place inside me. They thought I'd swallow it. They thought I'd stay quiet, keep paying, keep enabling. No! This ends now. The first thing I did was sit down and cut every single tie. Click. Cancel recurring transfer to the emergency fund. Goodbye $600 a month. Then the group trip contributions, always padded with my extra. Canceled. Mortgage. Car lease. The noose they'd tied around my neck years ago, dressed up as helping us get a better rate. I called the bank, then the lease company. Calm voice, steady tone. Told them I wanted out, that I would no longer guarantee my parents' debts. Of course, they didn't rip up the contracts that second. That's not how it works. But the accounts went under review, and I knew what that meant. Their sweet little fixed-rate deals wouldn't last. Variable rates would come. Higher payments, more pressure. Not today, but soon. And for once, the squeeze would be on them, not me. Then I sent my parents a message. I pulled out the receipts. $850 for Ruby's airfare, hotel share, and park ticket. Another $1,200 for group costs I'd covered because apparently I make more. $2,050 in total. Short to the point, you left Ruby on the side of the road. Return the money I paid for this trip. No flourish, no exclamation points. Just facts. The phone rang 10 minutes later. Mom's voice was sharp, brittle. "How dare you demand this?" "She's your daughter. You expect us to pay for her?" I almost laughed. "You mean the daughter you abandoned?" "Yes. I expect repayment." Dad grabbed the phone, his anger a blunt instrument. "She was sick!" "She couldn't go, so why should we pay? You're her mother. You make more money than all of us, and now you want us to pay for your child? What kind of family does that?" There it was. The fury. Not about abandoning Ruby. but about me daring to send them a bill. There it was, the fury. Not about abandoning Ruby, but about me daring to send them a bill. "You left her alone," I said flatly. "This isn't optional." "You can't just walk away like this," Mom snapped. I let out a dry laugh. "Who says I haven't already?" That stopped them cold. Dad's voice sharpened. "What's that supposed to mean?" I didn't answer, just let the silence breathe. And then the panic started to creep in. Dad's tone shifted, more uncertain. "What about the emergency fund?" "What about it?" I said. You'll still put money in, right?" "No!" A beat of silence. Then Mom's voice, higher now, brittle. "And the trips? You're still covering the trips? You can't just stop paying for family trips. Watch me." Another pause. I could almost hear them trying to catch up. Dad again, quieter, almost stumbling. "The cosigns. You didn't actually touch those, did you?" "I made some calls." Silence. Heavy, stunned silence. That's when the turn came. "You're ungrateful!" Dad shouted, desperate now. "We raised you. We sacrificed for you. You owe us the guilt card." Their ace of spades. I almost smiled. "I've been paying that so-called debt my entire adulthood. Thousands into your trips. Hundreds every month into your fund. I co-signed your house. Your car. I was your safety net." I let the words hang. Let them sink in. "And I just cut the cord." Nothing. For once in my life, they had no words. When I set the phone down, my hands weren't trembling. My chest wasn't tight. It felt like I'd finally put down a weight I'd been carrying since childhood, one I never should have been handed in the first place. The room was quiet, just the hum of the fridge and the faint scratch of Ruby's pencil from the couch. She looked up when I walked back in, her eyes wide. "Was that them?" she asked. "Yeah," I said. "They're not happy." Her little shoulders curled inward. "Are they still mad at me?" I crouched until we were eye to eye. "No," I said, calm and certain. "They're mad at me. And that's exactly how it should be." Something in her face softened. A tiny smile, fragile but real, tugged at the corner of her mouth. I knew the storm hadn't passed. It had just shifted direction. They were angry now, but soon they'd be desperate. They'd fight. They always did. I thought the silence after our last call would last a while. I thought maybe they'd be too stunned to lash out again, but my parents don't do silence. They do theater, and this time their stage was the church bulletin board, the family group chat, and the neighborhood Facebook group. The headline of their performance? Poor us. The first message I saw was in the family chat. "Our daughter Denise is demanding we pay her back over $2,000 for Ruby's trip. Ruby got sick, she couldn't go, and now Denise expects us to cover the entire cost. She makes far more money than we do, but now she's refusing to contribute to the family emergency fund or family expenses. Please pray she comes back to her senses." Attached, a cropped screenshot of my message. Just the line where I asked them to return the money. No mention of Ruby being left on a roadside. The comments rolled in fast. A cousin. $2,000? Seriously, Denise? An aunt. You always were dramatic. How can you treat your parents this way? Even a church friend. We'll pray for reconciliation. I stared at the screen, laughter bubbling up, sharp and bitter. Only my parents could abandon a child on an empty road and still find a way to paint me as the monster. I typed my reply slowly, carefully. Ruby wasn't sick. She was carsick. They left her on an empty road, sent me a pin, and drove away. She waited 20 minutes alone until I picked her up. No emotion, no exclamation marks, just facts. And still, the chat split down the middle. Some, "This is awful, Denise. I believe you." Others, "That doesn't sound like your parents." Why would they do that? The doubt sat heavy, because that's the thing about my parents. They were masters at dressing cruelty up as practicality. They'd been doing it my whole life. Then came the crack in their performance. Dad, in all his self-righteous wisdom, couldn't resist. He hammered out a reply, probably thinking he was winning points. Any rational person would have done it. We had a flight to catch. She was sick. We couldn't risk the other children. We had no choice but to do what we did. I read it twice. 3 times. My stomach flipped. Not with fear, but with satisfaction. Because there it was. In writing. Their confession, dressed up as logic. And the tide turned. The chat exploded. "You left her? You actually admitted it? Carsick isn't contagious. How could you?" Screenshots flew, neighbors reposted. Even people outside the family thread saw it before my parents realized their mistake and deleted the message. Too late. The internet never forgets. By Sunday, the whispers reached church. I didn't go. I never do. But friends sent me texts. "Your mom tried to give a testimony, but they told her it wasn't appropriate." People wouldn't even shake their hands. They walked out before the service ended. All those years they'd spent polishing their image as pillars of the community, undone by one sentence. Any rational person would have done it. I almost felt sorry for them. Almost. Then came stunt number 2. A screenshot appeared in the family chat. $2,050 transferred back to me. Caption: "Even though we already paid for Ruby's place, Denise demanded repayment." Here it is. Proof we paid. For a moment, it worked. An uncle wrote, "Well, at least they repaid you. That shows good faith." A cousin chimed in, "This proves they're trying, Denise." Maybe you should let it go now. I rolled my eyes so hard I thought they'd get stuck. So I pulled out my own stack of receipts. Emergency fund, $600 every month, 5 years. Family trips, $1,500 to $2,000 each time, multiple times. Mortgage and car lease cosigns. Other little extras that were never little. Total, over $40,000 in the last 5 years. I posted the photo, attached a simple caption. "This isn't about one trip. This is about a lifetime of me carrying them." And then I closed my phone. I posted it. And then I closed my phone. Not to watch the fireworks. I didn't need to. The truth doesn't scream. It just waits. And then it travels. Little pieces started reaching me. A friend of a friend forwarded a screenshot. "They deleted this, but everyone saw it." Someone else mentioned they'd tried to speak at church, but the room went quiet. A cousin's neighbor wrote me privately, "People aren't looking at them the same anymore." I didn't have to chase it down. The story found me anyway. That's the thing about a reputation. It takes decades to polish and only minutes to crack. And this time, they were the ones holding the hammer. 6 months later, I didn't need to ask for updates. They came to me anyway. First, the finances. A cousin mentioned they'd lost their fixed rate. The mortgage spiked, the car payment doubled, and without my monthly contributions, the math just didn't work. Bills piled. They panicked. Then came the car, repossessed in broad daylight. Neighbors watched from behind curtains, and by the next morning, everyone in town knew. After that came the house. Another relative sent me a photo, a for sale sign hammered into their perfect lawn. They sold quickly, for less than they wanted. Packed boxes, a quiet move, no farewells. And socially, they didn't need to be banned. They were simply erased. Invitations stopped coming. Dinners, birthdays, church gatherings, gone. The people they once leaned on crossed the street instead of saying hello. Piece by piece, they became ghosts in their own town. Meanwhile, Ruby was thriving. We finally booked the trip she'd begged for. Orlando, this time with me and my husband by her side. She screamed with joy when we pulled up, bouncing in her seat. Watching her laugh as we walked through the gates, I thought, every dollar I once wasted on them now builds her joy instead. Her laughter was the sound of freedom, but the real surprise came later. I'd heard whispers early on, relatives hinting that my parents were leaning harder on my brother now. With me gone, they assumed he'd step in. They expected him to open his wallet, rescue them, carry the load. But when the requests started, he didn't pay. And when the gossip spread, he didn't defend them. Because money wasn't the only problem anymore. They weren't just struggling, they were outcasts. And he wasn't about to tie himself to sinking ships. So the golden child, the son they built their whole world around, quietly cut the cord too. No support, no defense, no visits, nothing. It wasn't loyalty that guided him. It was self-preservation. And just like that, the parents who once bragged about their perfect son were left with no one. Not their church, not their friends, not even him. Just silence. So what do you think? Did I go too far? Or not far enough? Let me know in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe for more.